Peace and blessings. This is Raisa Kiwala, the divorced Muslim coach. We are on to video number 21, managing others' insecurities that are projected onto you. It's a big one. And what does this have to do with reliance on Allah and trusting yourself? So I get this a lot. I get this question asked a lot. How do you deal with what other people have to say, and how they feel that gets projected onto you? And how do you manage that? So many times the people that are closest to us in our life, they won't feel like things will be okay, or that they won't be okay, or you won't be okay unless things happen in a certain order, or things happen in a certain way where that they feel it needs to be done this way, that it needs to work this way, right? The decisions that you make or the actions that you take, if they don't see it as the right way to go, they feel like maybe the outcome will not turn out the best scenario. So they have their own fears or their own anxieties that get projected onto you, and that if you're not doing what they think you need to be doing, then they go into a panic. So how can you help yourself in that situation? Because then when they go into a panic, they feel like that the only way is for you to do what they think you need to be doing, so they'll feel secure. So remember, two things is that everyone is experiencing life via thought in the moment, and we each are creating our own experience of life through thought in the moment. And so each person is living in separate realities. We're not having the same thoughts. We're not using our thoughts in the same way. So that's why it's called separate realities. And that each one of us has the answers for our life within us through insight. So where does security come from? And who really knows the outcome or the future? Well, we all know the answer to that. It's only Allah, right? So when we go back to the truth from the inside out paradigm understanding, is that our feelings are always coming from thought in the moment, that our reality and our psychological experience of life is being created moment by moment through thought, that our feelings, how we're experiencing life is coming through thought. It's not coming from that person or that circumstance or that situation. And that when we recognize this, how it works, when we can recognize and accept and live in that, we feel a lot more secure, because we're really relying and trusting on Allah is in charge of the outcome, not someone else, not an outcome working out this way, right? So we feel a lot more secure. But when we can't see this truth, that our feelings and our reality is being created through thought, but it looks like the illusion that it's coming from that person, what they're doing, what they're not doing, what your circumstance or your situation is, when it looks like that, we're not seeing it. And then, all the power goes into that person or that circumstance or that situation, and you become dependent on what is outside of you, and what is outside of you, and outside of Allah's power, to help you and to make you be okay. And we all know that la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. We know everything lies in Allah's hands, the power, the control, all of it. But do we really believe it, right? Are we tapping into it, or are we tapping into other people's capabilities and powers? Are we allowing our connection to Allah to guide us and to carry us? Or are we allowing the hopes of what other people can do for us? Are we trusting ourselves through our connection with Allah? So, with this understanding, it's so much easier to trust yourself and your insight, because we're tapped into the source, the ultimate source, the never-ending source, the one that will never let you down. And it becomes easier to see that our loved ones, the people who are close to us or that we're dealing with, may not be seeing this, they're living in a separate reality, and they're not seeing things from the inside out. And they're thinking that something outside of them needs to change, whether it's you or it's a circumstance, needs to change in order for them to be okay. So then, there is a difference between making decisions from a place where you're being forced out of fear or obligation or guilt to make a certain decision. It's not coming from insight. It's not coming from a place of clarity. It's coming from, oh, I need to do this, or this person will be mad at me. Oh, I need to do this, or, I don't want to hear, I told you so, if I end up being wrong, right? A lot of those things, I'll never hear the end of it, or I need to listen to this person because I'm obligated to. A lot of those things that come up when, even though it doesn't feel right to us, how many times do we just give in? We don't want to, rock the waters and not, make any noise or ruffle the feathers and just go along. So there's a difference between just taking any action that you're told to do or that you're forced or obligated to do versus taking the right action in whatever step you're taking through clarity, which comes from insight. Do you see the difference? And you don't have to take an action that someone tells you to do just so they feel okay, so they feel secure that, okay, Raisa's doing this, so okay, I'm going to be okay because she's doing this, because I think that she won't fall into this situation, or she'll be protected. How do we know? We can't make those assumptions. And I'll give you a perfect example is that one of my oldest sons, we were getting ready to go somewhere, and my younger one was having some big feelings, like he was emotional about something. And when that happens, a lot of times he'll just get, he can't come to me and say, well, I'm worried about this, or I'm concerned about this, or, he's not going to come to me and sit down and have that conversation, but he's going to show me through his behavior. Usually he'll just get really stubborn and not want to do what we are ready to do. It's just kind of everything comes to a grinding halt. And so I have to try to connect with him and figure out how I can help him in that moment. And it's not about me trying to change his feelings or to force him to stop feeling what he's feeling and then move on with it. That's not what it's about. What it's about is providing that safe space for him to express how he's feeling through his behavior, but me just listening, me being that presence. And what happened is that, my older one got really upset and frustrated, like, oh, he always does this behavior when we're ready to go somewhere, it's not right, and you're not doing anything about it. You should be doing this, this, and this. So he had in his mind what he thought me as a parent should be doing in order for me to be taking charge of the situation. Well, he could have his things, but he was starting to do things that were not okay, because he felt like someone else needed to take charge, or he felt like someone else needed to change the situation in order for him to be okay and everything to be fine and move on and move forward. And, in that situation in the past, I would have said to him, I would have gotten mad at him and say, relax, stop, this is not about you. This has nothing to do with you. You just keep quiet and don't worry about yourself. But, I recognized that in that moment that the younger one was melting down and the older one was getting panicked that we were going to be late for something that we needed to go to, and that he was holding things up. We can't control when people have, when kids have meltdowns or experiences, right? And to the best of our ability to try to be there, that's our job as a parent, to try to be there for them, whatever they're going through. So, because I recognized this, many times I didn't, but at this point I did. I was able to very neutrally, firmly, and calmly say, hey, look, I got this. I will handle it in the way that I feel is best. You don't have to worry about what happens being late or not late. We're going to be just fine. I wanted to reassure him that, hey, look, you're going to be just fine. Don't panic. I got this, and I will handle it in the way that I feel is best. So the outcome was very different. Like I also said to him that I know that you're really trying to help, because most of the time the people in our life are doing this out of care and concern. They want to project their own insecurities or their worries and fears onto us, so we will do what they think we need to do in order for the whole situation to be okay. And what I said to him was like, I know that you're trying to help and you're doing your best, and this is what you think is going to be helpful, and I appreciate that. And but I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way, and it'll be okay, and you'll be okay. So acknowledging that and allowing me to handle that in a firm, calm, neutral tone and manner, rather than getting upset at him for interfering, for getting mad at his brother, and for, doing a whole slew of other things that are causing more fire to the fury, if you will, in this whole chain reaction, allowed him to accept my answer from a place of non-judgment, and allowed him to accept, okay, Mom, you got this, it's okay, I won't be, meaning like it calmed him down. And it took me a long time to get to this point where I can kind of understand what is going on and how to respond to it without myself being triggered and then projecting my fears or insecurities back onto the kids. And then, in any relationship, it goes back and forth, and you're dealing with heightened emotions and explosions rather than being able to communicate. So, I hope that was clear in what the difference is. And I invite you today to ask yourself, to think about a time where you felt obligated or really pressured to oblige, to behave a certain way out of fog, out of fear or obligation or guilt. You weren't sure if it was the right thing to do or not, and you didn't believe it was, but you gave in anyways, and you went along with it to appease the people in your life. Think about how that experience went for you, and all the feelings that you were feeling, the nervousness, the worry, the panic. What came up for you? This is going to be a very reflective exercise, and I can't wait to hear what you guys share. Looking forward to talking to you, and can't wait to see you next time. Take care. Peace and blessings.